What's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Monday night. It is July 10th, 2023, about 11:07 p.m. here along the West Coast. Earthquake activity. Latest update coming up here on this Monday night shows a 3.6 coming into the area of the Puerto Rico area. We did see some major movement kicking off here earlier this evening, along with weeks prior. We've been watching a swarm of earthquake activity occurring around the Puerto Rico area with that westward or northeastward movement and momentum, indicating some major pressure up here against the Puerto Rico Trench. Now, we did see a 6.6 earthquake coming in to the area just outside the Puerto Rico Trench here earlier this afternoon. That has been followed up by a couple aftershocks here with a 4.2 and a 4.4. Now, this area is very capable of producing not only a 6-pointer, but probably above the 8.0 earthquake range. And it's been of some seismic interest here recently. Puerto Rico is squeezed, so to speak, in between a couple different plate boundaries, including the South America and the North American plate, the Caribbean plate here, getting squeezed in between the two. This is a very minor plate, and that earthquake activity occurs. Let me go ahead and pull this up so you guys can see. Within these two massive bullies, and I call them bullies because they are pretty much, in terms of bullies, in terms of earthquake and plate tectonic movement. You got the South America plate here moving north, right? And the Caribbean plate here, where the Puerto Rico area sits, is shoved and squeezed in between a massive amount of plate tectonic dynamics here. This is a very, very active region, and that earthquake activity up here just kind of gives us a good reminder here of the very capable possibilities of major earthquake activity here in the region. Now, I pulled up, I want to show you guys here real quick. Let's find out where it went to. There we go. I pulled up historical data here. Now, there's not a whole lot of historical data in terms of large-scale movement here across the area, but there's been a lot of seismology investigations here of the Puerto Rico Trench, and it's a very deep trench out here across the Atlantic. They call this the Atlantic, North American Basin, Mid-Atlantic Ridge areas, but it's a very deep trench out here across the Atlantic. And looking at historical data here tells me the last earthquake within this region, specifically within this area of the Puerto Rico Trench, looks like about 1925, where we've seen a 6-pointer. And a little bit further to the west here shows a 6.1, 1939. But specifically within this area, the Puerto Rico Trench, very hit and miss here. And the largest, at least the largest earthquake activity here in this area shows a 8.5 earthquake here in the subduction zone right around the St. John's area, the Guadalupe region, and Antigua and the Barbuda area. That was a big earthquake back in 1843. This is a very small plate that is being bullied out here between the North American plate here to the north and the South American plate here to the south. We've got divergent boundaries out here pushing pressure up against this area, and the Cocos plate here applying further strain across the Caribbean plate. So this plate will eventually disappear, will no longer be. So in time. I know it sounds like a pretty scary scenario, but that's just the facts for the Caribbean plate. It will no longer be eventually as time progresses. But the Puerto Rico Trench out here, there's been a little bit of speculation on the potential here for a mega quake, producing a very large earthquake out here across the Puerto Rico Trench that would subsequently produce a tsunami for the Gulf of Mexico and the eastern portion of the country. Excuse me. And it's a little theory in place because there's not a whole lot of historical data in terms of the potential that exists out here. But gotta remember, we're humans, right? We've only been watching historical data for a very small amount of time. Technology has only developed recently, but far as studies go and theories go, there's definitely a strong theory on the potential for a mega quake out here, talking about above the 8.5 level. And that's what this area has seen back in 1843. That's a verified earthquake, 8.5, 1843 out here in St. John's. I don't know what kind of tsunami that produced, but I guarantee you it probably produced a significant tsunami. But I believe the Puerto Rico Trench area is much capable of producing something bigger. And we've been watching, definitely been watching, a swarm of activity here across the Puerto Rico Trench recently. Let me pull up the last 30 days of activity here. And there's a lot that goes on here across the Puerto Rico area. It's in a zone of being squeezed, so to speak. You got the Marirotas Trough, you got the Puerto Rico Trench up north. This whole area is being squeezed. The area here to the Puerto Rico region is being uplifted, while this area north is being subducted. It's a very sensitive area in terms of plate dynamics, and also potentially a major player in producing some damaging earthquakes here in the future, I believe. This is the last 30 days of earthquake activity. Notice that significant swarm up here around the Puerto Rico Trench. Got another significant swarm over here around the Mona Seamount. And that's all kind of been, and I'm not for sure what's going on over here around the St. John's area, because the USGS only shows 2.5 or all magnitudes here on the U.S. territories. Outside of that, that's non-existent. So who knows what's going on here? But apparently this area has been under quite a bit of strain and stress, and it's pushing off towards the north. This is the general plate movement here. If you look at the Caribbean plate, this is the Caribbean plate around the Puerto Rico area. It doesn't dynamically show what's going on here, but this area is kind of scooting off towards the north here, towards the north. That's a Caribbean plate underneath the North American plate here, and that's creating quite a bit of extreme pressure and dynamics here within the region. And this is definitely a little concerning here. 6.6, this originally came in as a 6.4 from the USGS, got upgraded to a 6.6. And it's outside of the plate boundary. Notice that. It's north of the plate boundary here. So that tells me right there that there's extreme pressure here against the Puerto Rico Trench. And a 6.6 is very minimal compared to what could take place out here in terms of damaging earthquakes. There's not a whole lot of historical data in terms of what you see there on the USGS catalog. This only goes back for record keeping, but go beyond that and you look at potential for some damaging large-scale earthquake activity here around the Puerto Rico Trench. I'll include that here on the up next video in terms of obviously what to watch for. I did do a study on this here a year or so ago, in terms of the potential mega quake activity here across the Puerto Rico Trench. It's very damaging, and no doubt that could send a tsunami across the eastern seaboard and the Gulf of Mexico. So this ain't no joke. Definitely no joke. A lot of people tend to ignore this area. Beautiful area for vacationing, but also at the same time, the plate tectonics out here are very, well, could be potentially very damaging. So we've seen a couple aftershocks here following that 6.6, 4.2, and a 4.4. We'll watch this area potentially for some further movement. We are seeing some further activity here across the Puerto Rico area with a 3.6 being the latest earthquake here. You remember, you got to think of what's going on down here in South America, North America region, Mid-Atlantic area. There's a lot going on out here across the Iceland area with the volcano activity there in Iceland. Some divergent boundary activity out there across the Azores and the Portugal region. There's a whole lot of swelling going on out here across the Atlantic, and that's playing a part in the major earthquake activity going on here across the Caribbean area, putting a major squeeze going on here across the Caribbean plate. So this area needs some watching very closely. This is a major vacation spot for folks out here, but this, at the same time, it could be very deadly. Very deadly. This is a very small, I can't say it's a microplate, but it's bigger than Cascadia, bigger than the Juan de Fuca plate, but it's being slowly disintegrated between the North American and the South American plate here, and everything else that's going on here across the Middle America Trench. This will be gone, who knows when, but it's definitely shown some major uptick here in earthquake activity recently. Watch that closely, folks. Not even joking. The Iceland area, we did stir up with the volcanic activity here recently. Things have been popping up there across the volcano of Iceland. Let's see where my I lost it, I think. But the Iceland area up there across the Reykjanes Ridge has been stirring up with a very small eruption. Now, I see a lot of folks putting that word major eruption going on out here in Iceland. That's not a major eruption. That is a very small volcanic eruption up there around the Reykjanes Ridge here across the plate boundary where the divergent boundaries take place up here. Not a major eruption, folks. This is very typical across the area of the Reykjanes Ridge, and a lot of folks taking advantage of a volcano that has been active, obviously, within the last year. So that's just the facts. There's not anything major going on up there in Iceland, and the same with the space weather activity coming up. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but a lot of people like to fearmonger. Oh my gosh, there's a volcano going on in Iceland. Well, that's been going on for the past couple hundred years. It's not anything new. It takes a little break, a couple every month or so, and then it kicks back up. So please don't be involved in the typical fear-mongering that's going on out there with the news agencies. I hate it. I do not like seeing that one bit. It's very irritating to hear Iceland's having a major volcanic eruption when it's only very minor, specifically located out here. I think it's only about 100, 200 meters in width out there along the fissures. I don't like it. I don't like the fear-mongering. It's kind of like bullying, right? It's like, give me what you got or else I'll beat you up. Come on, get over that. Get over it. Let's go over to the Pacific Northwest here, see what we got. Fear-mongering. Oh my gosh, look! A 1.9 in Fortuna! The world's going to blow up. I could literally post this up on my YouTube channel here and fear-monger the heck out of this earthquake. And I would get probably triple times my views. But I'm not like that. I'm all about the facts. So, it's just slap. You need a good slap across the face here for some people out there. Okay, we got a 1.9. Whoop-de-doo. That was occurring earlier this morning. No further earthquake activity here across Northern California. Let's give a quick glance here at the tremor map. 46 epicenters, a whoop-de-doo across Oregon. We're not looking at major tremor activity, just a very small amount across the southern Oregon area. Let's see what else we got here. Goodness, I just can't stand it, man. I can't stand it. It's one of those days where I want to stay in my shell and not get out, because a lot of people are taking advantage of the Iceland earthquake activity to get views in. You know, it's like Iceland volcanic activity. Goodness. That just happened a couple months ago. And it was much bigger than what we're seeing now. Okay, let's move on. 2.4 Oklahoma. Outside of the Hennessy area, it looks like. Nothing big, obviously. South of Enid. There's oil fields going on out here, but that's about it. There's not a whole lot of major, large-scale activity going on. All right, let's look at California here, because I'm getting a little bit scattered in the earthquake activity department. Southern California, very minimal. We're not seeing any major swarms going on. This would obviously give us a good indicator of what's going on, right? But there's nothing major going on here. Little scattered activity south of the bay, outside of the Pacific area. But this is very typical along a major plate boundary, right? The San Andreas Fault, major plate boundary. It would not be out of the question here to see some earthquake activity here. And that's what we see in the smaller scale department. California, 2.5 and above. There you go. There's your fear mongering. Nothing going on, okay? Nothing. Yellowstone National Park. What do we got? Any fear mongering going on from those YouTube channels, right? They always like to fear monger these seismograph stations here. Oh my gosh, look at that. That's a localized earthquake. That is magma movement. No, it's not. That is not magma movement. Good Lord. I've seen a couple updates here tonight saying that's magma movement. That is a long, distant earthquake with the surface waves, the surface activity occurring there. So that is going to be, okay, ready for it, folks? Here it is. That's that 6.6 earthquake there, north of the Puerto Rico Trench. Don't believe me? Well, look at the timestamp there. Okay? The timestamp tells me right there that that matches up specifically with that 6.6 in the Puerto Rico area. So a lot of folks out there like to fearmonger these local graphs here and claim that that's local activity. That's magma movement. Look what it did to Yellowstone. Oh my gosh, it's going to blow. Good Lord, please, no. I just can't handle it. I really can't. I don't like the fear-mongering one bit. You know, it doesn't matter who it is out there, but they should not fear-monger the YouTube community. Please get your facts straight. Study geology. Study physical science before you start fear-mongering the community out there. And those YouTube channels need to be taken down, and I think they will eventually. But I don't like it. I don't like the fear mongering. It bugs me. It's like someone claiming that there's a tornado coming down from the clouds, when in fact it's only the uplet or the updraft. You know, updraft in a thunderstorm. Tornado, right? Tornado compared to an updraft in a thunderstorm. Come on, give me a break. Good Lord, I'm over it. I'm ready to go to a cabin and just live the rest of my life up in there in the mountains somewhere, because I just can't handle it anymore. I can't. I'm done. I'm done with stupidity, and I'm tired of these YouTube channels that are getting views for nothing. 1.7 out in the Brinkley, Arkansas area, way after midnight last night. Okay, let's go and look at the world view. So following the 6.6 out here in the Caribbean area outside the Puerto Rico Trench, we did have some subsequent movement here into the southern East Pacific rise. That's a 5.7 earthquake here in the divergent boundary. So not only does the plate tectonic activity here, the rubbing against the plates and the stress against the plates, create earthquake activity, but also what's going on below the surface. That includes magma in the mantle and everything else that's going on here in the area. I believe the Atlantic region is very active out here, producing, and I'm really surprised we haven't seen further earthquake activity out here along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, but there's definitely something brewing out here big time underneath the North Atlantic Ocean. Not only the active activity here across the Iceland area, but also down in Puerto Rico region. We got something brewing big time. What it's pointing to, I'm not a forecaster, and I don't have that crystal ball that magically tells me where earthquakes are going to take place, you know, and that's only a 1% that's a 1% percentage there of that magical earthquake ball forecast. It doesn't happen. I hate forecasting out there. It's non-existent. If I were to say there's going to be an earthquake here in the Middle America Trench time and time again, eventually that's going to happen, right? Eventually that's going to happen. So, you know, it's false. Just don't pay attention to people that say and forecast earthquakes out there. There's no such thing as earthquake forecasting. Obviously, there's earthquake watches when you have extreme swarms going on here across the area. This isn't an extreme swarm, but just stating, for example, say we see an extreme swarm out here around the Salton Sea, very close to the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault. So we see a couple hundred earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. Obviously, that would require an earthquake watch, or at least a warning, maybe a warning, because that's very close to the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. But to claim that, you know, there's, I don't know, I see it all the time through Facebook and Twitter. There's even apps in terms of forecasting earthquake activity, and people pay for it. You know, it's I don't know. Good Lord, folks. You know, wake up. Need a little slap across the face. Don't pay attention to those people that can claim earthquake forecasting. There's a big-time YouTube player that thinks he can forecast earthquakes out there. It doesn't happen. You know, eventually when the arrows come around, you know, that, 10 weeks from now, we should see earthquake activity here along the West Coast. Good Lord, come on. Give me a break. Get over it. You know, there's no such thing as earthquake forecasting. That's a false reading that needs to be deleted from YouTube. And YouTube, thank God, is deleting channels that pose earthquake forecasting. Goodness, get rid of that crap. All right. I got to move on here because it's annoying. It's a very annoying subject that people claim that they can forecast, and oh my gosh, okay, so we have the crystal ball in my hands, and I forecast here that California will be hit by at least a 5.0. So say we have a 5.0, 2,000 miles down here along the plate boundary, 3,000 miles. Look, I forecasted it. There it is. There's a 5.0 that I forecasted for the West Coast. Get over it. Get out of here. Get the heck out of here. I can't stand that crap. I'm not even joking. I hate stuff like that. I can't wait for the channels like that to be taken down. Get rid of them. 4.5 China. Not a whole lot going on across the Mediterranean. Let's go ahead and check out the areas of the earthquake 3D globe. Very minimal earthquake activity. Notice the decline in movement here across the Mediterranean. Very small microquake activity. The rest of Atlantic Ocean here, aside from the Puerto Rico area, where they obviously seen some microquake movement and some moderate earthquake activity. We do have a 4.1 coming into the Middle America Trench, it looks like. Not showing up here across the USGS map, but obviously on the USGS or the EMSC side. A mixed bag, definitely a mixed bag of earthquake activity here across the last 24 hours, down here into the Kermadec Trench. Last earthquake was early this morning. It looks like a 4.9 along the Loyalty Islands area. The GeoNet servers here across the New Zealand region shows a 2.7 4 hours ago, 2.9 5 hours ago, and also a 3.1 there 7 hours ago. So according to their map here, let's go ahead and double check that, make sure that their readings are correct. Looks like a little bit of earthquake activity, South Island area showing some seismic activity, but I'm not really seeing anything major blast off here across the New Zealand area for now. So that's just the facts, ma'am. That's just how it is. No fear mongering. I can't stand it. Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. Trident Volcano area, Mount Martin area. That area has definitely shown some seismic uptick and elevated volcanic activity as well. Let's see what else we got for space weather. Let's go ahead and jump into space weather here before I get crazy. We still got viewers up here. Let's double check. Hi, boss. Hi, Timothy. Thanks for checking in. I appreciate it. Let's go over here to the solar ham. Where'd he go? Space weather activity here across the region. I know a lot of people like that fear mongering, right? I think I would probably have 1,000 times more views just fear mongering than I would producing the truth, the facts, right? If you really think about it, right? What draws you into YouTube videos? Something that would stand out from the abnormal. So if I were to fearmonger this Puerto Rico area and claim that there's a mega volcano going on underneath this area, that would get probably 1 million views or so. Maybe I should do that. I don't know. No, I'm not. I'm not about that. I don't want to do that. What is capable is obviously in the trench areas a mega quake, not a mega volcano, but a mega quake here across the region. It's been studied out here. It's a subduction zone across the area, and it does have capabilities of producing a damaging earthquake that could send the tsunami out here across the eastern portion of the country. But I did do a little study on that a year or so ago, I think. So I'll include that video here at the end of this update video. I just don't like fear mongering. It bugs me, folks. It bugs me. There's so many channels out there that fear monger the heck out of everyone, and I don't like it. I'm tired of it. I hope YouTube takes them all down, demonetize them, do whatever they need to do to get rid of them, because it's false information. Very false. I don't like spreading false information. So looks like here across the flare chart, a little bit of C flare activity here, a little bit of M flare activity earlier this evening as well. Looking at the magnetogram image here, this shows the latest structure here within the sunspot regions. Look at this area down here, very, very big, but it is not dynamic in terms of complexity. It's just a massive core in the sunspot region that doesn't really harbor any potential for any major flaring. The main area, I think, is up here across the northwestern quadrant of the sun. That did spark off a little bit of M flare activity. That's getting very dynamic. Also, we do have a growing sunspot here, but for the most part, 2 sunspot regions here that pose a significant risk of some flaring across the eastern limb of the sun. That's about it. There's not a whole lot of further development out there in terms of solar flaring. Way out without the visible disk here. Outside of of the visible disk, I should say. On the northeastern edge here, way out, outside of the visible disk, they show some massive development going on. So we'll watch this here in the coming days as we get a better perspective of that sunspot region. But goodness, it looks massive, but we'll see how it looks once it comes around the bend, right? Far as any major solar weather forecast goes, it looks like, at least for the 13th time period, not looking at anything major. I think towards Thursday we could see a little potential for some elevated solar weather activity, but these guys, like the social media platforms there, KFOR, KTLA, KOMO, they're forecasting a major solar storm, at least Aurora forecast there for the Thursday time period of this week. And it's just not, I don't see any major development there, at least according to the space weather activity. Looks like maybe a geomagnetic storm watch, very minor G1 class storm on Thursday, when it's a very glancing blow. This may not even come to pass on Thursday, but the social media platforms are fear-mongering the heck out of this very minor CME that was just not even Earth-directed. I guess news media is slow right now, right? I guess. But I don't know. There's a lot of fear-mongering going on with society right now in terms of politics and space weather and economics and everything going on. It's just, why even stir the pot? There's not a big storm headed this way. Goodness. I don't even know, folks. I don't know. What's your thoughts? What is your thoughts? I don't even know what to say. But all right, let's go ahead and go to the Storm Prediction Center here. Looks like a little bit of activity throughout the night, as mentioned there in the areas. Thunderstorm activity over the next day or so, very minimal. I gotta bounce out of here, man, before I get too uptight and upset here. I know a lot of people don't like to hear the truth. They don't like to hear the facts. Oh, and Yellowstone is a very, if everyone's still listening, Yellowstone is a very good description of how YouTubers tend to fearmonger and gain subscribers, gain views, right? They could easily state the Soda Butte area as a magma intrusion. Oh my gosh, look what's going on up here around Soda Butte. USGS is not picking up on it. That's a major magma intrusion up here in Yellowstone. Yellowstone's about ready to blow. Or they could take this up here around Mammoth Butte area, which is obviously outside interference, not earthquake or volcanic activity related. They could fearmonger any type of views here, including this one. If you weren't know what you were looking at, this is the 6.6 there in the Puerto Rico area. They could claim that the YouTube or the Yellowstone area showing a major earthquake with magma showing up here across the graph. But those are, little do they know, those are S waves occurring from the 6.6 there in the Puerto Rico area. It's just, I'm here to put a squash to those fear-mongering channels. They may have more subscribers than I do, more viewers, a better voice than I do, maybe, as far as pronunciation goes. But those people right there will eventually fade away as YouTube puts out the community guidelines to those folks, because those people are fear-mongering and putting panic amongst their YouTube subscribers. And that's just not cool. It's really not cool at all. YouTube should be about the facts, and I think every YouTuber out here should look to their subscribers and present to them the facts, not fear mongering. And I don't like it when, those channels, there's multiple channels that have major subscribers, way more than I do, putting out these fear mongering videos. And it's just, it's something that needs to come to pass, and those guys need to go away. And I think eventually they will. YouTube will put to rest the false information that they're presenting. I've studied geology and physical science for many years. I'm majoring and getting my master's in that degree. I've studied geology throughout the years here, and I know enough to know what I'm looking at and not to throw out false readings, false YouTube videos that many YouTubers present out here across the area. And unfortunately, a lot of people like that false YouTube activity. They want to see a picture like that, and there'll be a thumbnail. Major magma movement going on across Yellowstone right now. Look at it. Just look at that major magma movement. And, that triggers up a wildfire in the social media platform. And it's all false, fake information out there. And I don't like it. I don't like to see people being fooled. Anyway, we'll move on. We will move on, and we'll hopefully see those channels put to rest. Just my, it's my, how do I put it? It's my best intent to bring you guys the most factual information out here when it comes to earthquake activity, volcanic activity, physical science. And, who knows? What you can believe out here these days. There's a lot of AI. There's a lot of false information being spread across many platforms. It's just something you have to take with a little grain of salt. Look for yourself, Earthquake activity, obviously, it's going to show up across many seismograph stations. That's a large-scale event. Thousands of miles away there in Puerto Rico. That's not something local. This is outside interference. If this was magma movement, I would guarantee you that would show up across many other stations out there. So, if you like that fear mongering, if you like that false information, go for it. Subscribe to those channels. Make sure you listen to every false information that they have to spew out their mouth. But I am not here to spew out that false information. And I'm here to bring you guys the 100% facts, 100% geological information that's being provided out here by the instruments here that we see on the screen. Have a good night, folks. I'm out of here. Take care. We'll catch you guys back here a little bit later tomorrow.